So it's lovely to see everybody tonight. Welcome to another Lyme Disease UK seminar, which is a slightly different one tonight. So tonight, I'm really pleased to introduce to you Rosie Milsom, who many of you know from working with the Caudwell LymeCo charity. And I would like to say that she is a colleague and a friend. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So just a bit of housekeeping before we start. You'll find when you are admitted to the session that your videos and microphones are off. That's purely because it's very distracting for somebody speaking to have somebody put their video on in the background and their microphone and their phone's ringing in the background. So that's why they're all kept off. So if you could keep them off, that'd be brilliant. There is a moderator in the background, so that if anybody switches one on accidentally, she'll switch it back off again. And if anybody's got a problem, let's say you could put a message in the chat box and either the moderator or myself will try and pick it up. Everybody will get a recording of this session afterwards, so you don't need to take notes. It will also appear on our website, on our YouTube channel. So there's loads of opportunities for you to watch it back, because when you watch something live, you don't always take in what's being said. So don't be worried, you'll get a recording. So I'd like to introduce Rosie properly. So Rosie Milsom is a qualified fundraiser, and I know that well because my daughter is too. And charity professional with a keen interest in Lyme disease, having worked for Caudwell LymeCo charity from 2018 to 2021. And many of you would have had contact with Rosie. During her time there, she launched the first UK charity medical research project into Lyme disease testing, and she spoke to hundreds of Lyme patients via the charity's helpline service. So since leaving Caudwell Lyme, Rosie has set up her own business with life coaching, and we put our heads together and thought that a very interesting topic for people with chronic illness is self-esteem, or the lack of it. I know this is something that affected me profoundly when I was first ill. So who was the best person to choose to talk about this tonight? I thought Rosie. So over to you, Rosie. After Rosie speaks, Rosie and I are just going to sort of throw some thoughts about, because we've both faced challenges in life. Me, obviously, my background is with chronic illness and Lyme disease, just like everybody else. Rosie's faced her own life challenges, and we thought when she's spoken, we could just knock about a bit of what happened to us and how we moved forward from that. And then after that, Rosie will take any questions that anybody would like to ask her. And if you could put them in the chat box after she's spoken, we'll try our best to get through them. So definitely over to you now, Rosie.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you for that intro. And hi, everybody. Well, welcome. It's so nice to see some familiar names from my time at Caudwell LymeCo that I can see in everyone that's attended here. So I'm really excited to deliver this session for you tonight, and hopefully hearing from some of those old names. So as Julia said, I since Caudwell LymeCo, I'm still kind of working in the charity sector, still passionate about Lyme disease, but also become a coach. So as part of my talk today, I'm going to share some slides with you. So I'm just going to bring those up on my screen now, and I believe we're going to share these with you. Oh, sorry, it's not right at the beginning yet. We're going to share these with you. So again, as Julia said, no need to feel like you need to take notes or anything like that. So I'm just going to bring these up. Sometimes my system goes a little bit slow when I'm sharing via Zoom, but they should be coming up shortly. Okay, here we are. So name of the session today is about how to rediscover your identity and self-worth. And I've created this presentation for everyone here at LD UK based on some of the work that I'm doing as a coach at the moment. So for those of you that don't know me, are perhaps new to the Lyme world or our paths never crossed, whilst I was at Caudwell LymeCo, as I say, I'm now a certified life and self-love coach, which sounds a little bit cheesy. I don't really like the term self-love. That's where I call myself a self-worth coach. But my main focus as a coach is supporting women from across the UK to increase their sense of self-worth, largely or a lot of the moment by helping them find their purpose so that they can create a life that excites and fulfills them. Because I see far too many women thinking too little about themselves and spending too little time on themselves and too much time on everyone else, and just kind of drifting and existing in a life rather than actually living it. But as Julia mentioned, I'm also a qualified fundraiser. My other world, I am head of fundraising at the British Youth Council, which is a youth charity, but I do have a keen interest in Lyme. As Julia said, I worked for Caudwell LymeCo from 2018 to 2021, which is how I know some of you here. And Julia kind of mentioned this, or kind of inferred towards this, but as someone who has experienced a long journey with infertility, my husband and I have been trying for children for 8 years now, which is pretty crazy. And although it's a different sort of condition from Lyme disease, it is a chronic health condition that doesn't have a cure, doesn't have an answer. And I can empathize with Lyme patients, not only because I've spoken to so many and I understand, as much as I can, what people go through, but also because I understand how these kind of health conditions can completely take over your life and affect your view of yourself and your body and just your overall sense of self-worth. So I want to be able to speak to you today from, yes, the things that I've learned as a coach and helping people discover their identity and purpose, but hopefully with both of those lenses on it as well. That's why Julia and I thought I would be a good person to speak with you today. But I wanted to start by sharing like my kind of definition of what self-worth actually means, because sometimes when you put that term, it's not always necessarily clear. But to me, the definition of self-worth is like that sense of value that you give to your life, to yourself and your achievements, like how much you value yourself and the things that you do in your life. It's that internal sense of being good enough or feeling good enough and worthy enough of love, success, joy, recognition for the things that you do. And self-worth is largely defined by external factors, when the kind of validation from others, whereas true self-worth should really come from within. It's something that it's a knowing that you should have that shouldn't be affected or validated by the outside. And it's often linked in with self-belief, self-esteem. They're all kind of similar, similar terms that feed into self-worth. And self-worth also affects every single area of your life. It affects what you feel you can receive in relationships. It affects, as we're touching on here today, your health has an effect on your self-worth, but also conversely, your self-worth can have an effect on your health and how you look after yourself. Same with your appearance there. Your self-worth can affect your relationships with your family, with your friends. It affects your career in terms of what you believe you are capable or worthy of receiving. And it can affect your wealth, like your relationship with money, how much you think you are worth, how much you are willing to ask for, but also your relationship with money in terms of debt and other such things. Obviously, there's certain amounts of debt that you can't help but experience. But if you have quite an impulsive behavior with money, the root of that can often be down to your self-worth, because you're having to, buy things or do things that are boosting your, well-being or making you feel good enough. I know I can see a few things coming through on the chat. I'm going to just do these slides in a moment and hopefully come to those later. But obviously, if there's anything technical, I'm sure Julia or the others would let me know. But if there's anything technical, like people can't see my slides or anything, then obviously just do give me a shout. Now, I truly believe from everything that I've seen over the past few years, the research that I've done, the women that I've spoken to, the men that I've spoken to, the only way that you can create and receive both ways true happiness, love and success, or at least the potential that you have for it, is to have a strong and complete sense of self-worth. Without that, that's not to say that you won't experience happiness, you won't experience love, you won't experience success. But to, as I say, experience your true potential of it, and to be able to experience it and enjoy it, you need to have that sense of self-worth, that you deserve it, that you are good enough to receive those things. And I also just want to caveat this by saying, you can have a full and complete sense of self-worth when it comes to relationships. Like you can, you can be absolutely happy and comfortable and confident when it comes to love, but perhaps struggle with self-worth in like career, for example, or vice versa. You can also be a confident person and struggle with your sense of self-worth. I think sometimes we build this picture of, that person can't struggle with their self-worth. They're confident, they stand up for what they believe in, they say what they think, but you can be a confident person and have self-worth. It doesn't necessarily not go hand in hand. But the fact is that, or the fact certainly for me and for what I've seen, is that if you don't believe that you are worthy of having these things, so love, happiness, respect, success, joy, what have you, then you won't live your life in a way that makes them come about, because you don't think you deserve them, so you're not going to make it happen. And excuse me, let's take some water. And if you do have them, if you do have love, success, joy, respect, what have you, but you don't feel worthy of having them, then you won't enjoy them. And that's when you see patterns of self-sabotage coming through. Lots of women I've spoken to recently are doing really well in their career, but they just get to a certain point where they and they recognize that they are self-sabotaging it, because that it doesn't feel comfortable to them, because they're like, no, I'm not this person, this isn't me. So I'm going to do something that means I don't take this opportunity to the next level, or what have you. But when you believe that you are worthy of love, success, happiness, praise, money, whatever it is, despite the things that you struggle with, so despite the characteristics or the experiences, the health issues that you might be going through, that's when your transformation happens. That's when you can start moving through some of these issues. And I believe that what you experience in life is a reflection of who you are being, and who you are being comes down to your sense of self-worth. So we often kind of question, like, who am I? If you are struggling with your sense of self-worth, your self-worth is so closely linked to your self-image or your identity that if you're struggling with one, it throws the other, or it can often throw the other out, especially depending on what those issues are. But I want to make it clear that your identity is based on far more than just your body and your physical attributes and what you might be going through. Your identity, your worth is more than your health. It's more than that. You are made up of far more things than that. And some of the stuff that you've been going through may have made you focus on that. And that may be like a core center of your being and motivation and focus, but you are more, your identity is far more than that. And we're going to kind of tap into exploring some of those things during the session today. But to help kind of demonstrate this a little bit further, I wanted to share this image with you of the self-worth pyramid. So this isn't mine, I didn't create it, so I can't claim it, but I do agree with the principle that's shared here. And that it's, imagine if self-worth was at the top, the very top of that pyramid, at the very, very peak. There are kind of three main steps that can get you to that full and complete sense of self-worth. And that begins with self-awareness. So that's becoming aware of yourself, becoming aware of the things that make you you, becoming aware of what drives you, what motivates you, what your purpose is, what the different elements about you. And then the next stage after that is self-acceptance. So accepting who you are, both the light and the dark. Like, we've all got dark within us, obviously not necessarily dark like demonic, or I certainly hope not, but it's accepting those things that you've done in the past that you perhaps aren't proud of, but have made you who you are now in a good way. It's accepting where you are now, the things that have happened to you, and how they've made you who you are. And then the final pillar is around self-love. And this isn't like self-love like self-care, like that's a practice of self-love. But self-love is, making healthy, happy decisions for yourself. It's being honest with yourself when you need to be honest with yourself. It's recognizing when you need support. It's treating yourself with the love and compassion that you would want to treat somebody that you loved very much. And what we are going to focus on today is some of the elements for the bottom of that pyramid. So developing that sense of self-awareness about who you are, because I know myself in terms of the struggle I've been through, that I've done this work, and it really helped me, set me on this path of becoming a coach. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a little while. But my hope is that some of the questions that I might cover today and things that I can point you towards will help you develop that sense of self-awareness, and how your identity may have shifted from who you were before you caught Lyme, or were embroiled, but some of you here might be carers for people with Lyme disease, of who you were before you had that responsibility and that experience. And it's okay that you're someone else now, but it's also okay to feel lost and think, okay, well, I knew who I was, but who am I now? And it's helping you do that. And you might think, well, why is this actually really important? Like, it's a nice thing to do, but it's not essential for me to do this. I've got a hell of a lot more priorities in my health, or with my family, or looking after loved ones. Like, why is this an important thing for me to focus on? Why is this going to make a difference? And to answer that question, I would say because your main relationship in life is with yourself. Like, of course, you have key relationships with loved ones in your life, and a lot of your focus may be around that for those of you that have children or what have you, but you are the person that you are with all the time. You are the person that is constantly listening to your thoughts, desires, dislikes. You are the one that has that main relationship. That thing that is never going to go away is that relationship with yourself. And knowing that means that knowing, loving, and accepting who you are is key to nurture that relationship. And from doing that, that will affect so many things around you. If you are able to improve the relationship that you have with yourself, to know, love, and accept who it is that you are now, that, as I say, it has such an amazing effect on knowing where you stand with your relationships, how you want to be treated, and it can increase your sense of happiness and self-worth, which of course has a positive effect on, you know, your relationships around you. And like I said, you know, that might be someone different than who you were before, and that's okay. It's sad that this choice has been made for you, but to know who you are now, there's a certain amount of power in that. So if this is you, if this is resonating and you're thinking, okay, yeah, I've kind of lost a bit of my sense of self, I don't really know who I am without this anymore, I don't know what I'm motivated by, I don't know what my purpose is anymore, then I'm going to touch on some of the things that you can do to start rediscovering your identity. So taking it back to basics, really, these are some of the things that I've done myself, and that I've taken some of my one-to-one clients through, that have really helped either confirm, reaffirm, or discover, you know, who we are. So in this Venn diagram, in the middle, I've got that little like heart-shaped fingerprint, and that's you, that's your unique identity blueprint, and we all have one. We are all different, we are all unique in our own little ways, and we are made up by a lot of things make up our unique identity blueprint. There are the external things like you know, our gender, you know, our religion, our career, you know, our family, you know, those external or like physical factors, but there are also other more intrinsic factors, and it's not just these three, but these are three that I kind of focus on quite a lot, that make up who you are, and that what motivates you, drives you, cares, what kind of indicates what you need from yourself, from your career, from your life, but also from other people. So the first one is about your core values. And when I say values, I don't mean like, oh, I value fidelity, like we would all, I think, value fidelity, but it's more about the values that fulfill you or empower you to embody, the kind of values that resonate with you, that are important to live your life by, or that make you feel good to live by. And you've got then your psychological or what I call your human needs. So these are obviously we've all got needs, and I'm sure some of you have heard of that hierarchy of needs, where you've got, you know, your basics like your security, but these are slightly different ones. So there is growth, contribution, significance, love and connection, certainty, and variety. You can look up all of these things. I'm not going to dive into them super deep tonight, but they can be really interesting. You can do certain quizzes to find out what yours are, but they give you a sense of how you, like I say, what you need to have in your life in order to feel comfortable, happy, fulfilled, but also how you want to or interact with other people. So you can do these tests with like your partners and stuff. And also your personality type. So there are various quizzes that you can do online that will tell you, and that are free, that will tell you what your specific personality type is. And if you do these, you will feel seen. It's crazy. But they can give a really great insight into the personality traits that are really individual to you, both positive and negative, and how you can deal with those. But if we focus on core values as one for you to explore and think about, because I think that's a really, really important one. Your core values, as I say, they're your motivators, they're your drivers, they are what's important to you. And they can change as you change. You know, as we change throughout our life, our values are different, but they're normally rooted within your identity. There'll normally be some core values that you'll carry throughout your life that you've perhaps had since childhood. And when you live in line with your values, whether that's just living everyday life or whether you are incorporating them into your career, that's when you will feel like your most authentic self, your most empowered self, your most inspired self. So for example, my core values, I'm just looking because I have them written by the side of my laptop: family, personal growth, helping others, and joy and optimism. So as you can see there, the personal growth, the helping others, that's what, I did this before I'd actually decided to move on to my career as a coach, but I'd already had it in my mind that was something I really wanted to do. And doing this quiz and choosing, discovering what my core values were, really reaffirmed for me that was the right path for me. And that was also, I think, why I enjoyed my time at Caudwell LymeCo so much, especially the speaking to patients on the help desk and helping them, because that is part of my core value: helping others, growth and contribution. They are my core values. They're some of my core human needs. And that's why I was so fulfilled to work there. And that's why I'm so fulfilled as a coach, because it's part of my makeup, my very makeup, to do those things. And there are so many values, lots, too many to talk about tonight. But what I might invite you to do, and there are various ways that you can do this online, and I'm also going to share a way that you can uncover your values with me at the end of my talk. But I invite you to think about what your core values are. I mean, you might have an idea of what some of them are already, but once you do know, how can you express them more in your day-to-day life? What can you do? And this doesn't need to be big things. It doesn't need to be, helping others can just be, sending a message to someone is going through a rough time, or, giving somebody a call, or supporting someone on social media. Like, it doesn't need to be big things and big gestures, but the more that you're able to understand what your values are and what drives and motivates you, and the more that you're able to express them in your life in a way that is obviously within your scope and your physical limitations, the more you will feel rooted in your identity, and the more you will find a sense of purpose, because you're delivering what it is that you really care about. And the next thing that I want to touch on is about seeing value in yourself. So I know that's something that people struggle with, especially when they feel they aren't able to do much, they aren't able to contribute much, they aren't able to kind of generate relationships easily because they're not well enough to kind of make plans or commit or do certain things. But or do certain things for people. We often feel like to provide value to people, we have to have done something for them. We have to complete a task, we have to do something they couldn't do for themselves. But I want you to be able to see the value that you have in yourself beyond that. So I want you to ask yourself a question, like, what do you admire about yourself? And I want you to be kind to yourself when you're asking it. And that can be related to your health struggle. Like, if there's something that you admire about the way that you've dealt with your disease, with the struggle. But also aside from that too, because like we mentioned before, you are more than your health. There is more to you than that. So what do you admire about yourself? And if you are struggling to come up with things, then ask your friends or loved ones what they admire, because they might want to tell you. And it can be lovely to hear those things from other people, and they might see something, or they might admire something in you that you didn't even know about. So I want to think, what am I proud of? What makes me proud about myself? It could be like your tenacity. It could be that you keep going despite what you're going through, that you still make gestures for loved ones, that you found a new skill. Like, what do you admire about yourself? And also seeing value in yourself and your life. What is it that you enjoy? So it might be that before you became ill, there were certain things that you were able to do that you're not able to do anymore. but what is it that you enjoy now? What makes you happy now? What when you're doing it does give you purpose and meaning? And how can you do these things more? Let's say, limitations aside, where are the moments in your life where you do find that inspiration or happiness? And if you are struggling to see that right now, then what's something new that you've wanted to try? What's, what could you explore that you think might make you happy, that is within your capabilities and your limitations? And how can you make this happen? How can you make yourself accountable to these things? How can you make sure that you are willing to try something new, or that you do more of the activities that make you happy and that you deserve to be able to do that? And I also want to touch on the idea around having your pain as your power, and how it can be used in that way. Like, can you see any way that your struggle has given you some good qualities? For example, for me, going through fertility struggles and treatment, it helped me develop a better sense of compassion. It helped me grow in terms of my strength and resilience. It made me more patient because I didn't have much choice but to be. But it increased my knowledge in certain areas. Like, I moved into new careers. I wouldn't have gone to Caudwell LymeCo and helped who I helped there if my path had gone, if I'd had children, I probably would have just stayed where I was. And then I wouldn't have helped the people that called into the help desk when they did, because they might have spoken to someone else. Not that they couldn't help them as well, but there needs to be a certain line of action for all of those things to have happened. And I know there are people that I told to get treatment that were having the wrong treatment, and that could have made a huge difference. And obviously that's not to say that I wouldn't rather have had a family and seen these things, but I believe and I'm grateful for the opportunities that came along because of what I've been through. I'm grateful for who that's made me as a person, and how I'm able now to help people see themselves differently, because that whole experience had a massive effect on my self-worth. And I kind of lived and breathed infertility and IVF and trying for children for years. But I was able to find purpose in the pain. And I just want to put that question to you, to ask if you can too. And you don't have to, you don't have to. You can say, no, do you know what? It's given me nothing good. I haven't developed any great qualities, and that's fine too. But sometimes when we look at things from a certain perspective, we take what we can from it, and it's not about toxic positivity or like Pollyanna syndrome. I'm not asking you to be grateful for something that you're not grateful for. Absolutely not. It's just about looking at ways that you can accept who you are and what's happened to you, and see them from a different perspective, or take whatever positives you can for who it's made you today. And a lot of what you're thinking about yourself, your self-worth, you'll be thinking, we think between, I think it's like 50,000 and 90,000 thoughts every day that are going on and on and on. 80% of them are untrue, and 90% are the same that you had the day before. So you constantly thinking all these things about yourself, what you're capable of, what this means about you. And all of these thoughts create feelings, and these thoughts and feelings create your sense of self-worth. And based on your sense of self-worth is your behaviors, and your behaviors create your actions. and the actions that you have, whether that's in relationships, in work, in just your everyday life, they affect the results that you are getting. And those results then go back and create thoughts and feelings about yourself. And then it's just one cycle, one after the other. And the thoughts that you are having, they are, you know, giving off from a scientific point of view, but if you're spiritual as well, you know, a sense of energy, and it affects, you know, what and who you attract, or it can affect who and what you are, and what you attract and what you're feeling, you know, that energy that you give off. And if you're kind of stuck in this cycle of, you know, thinking these same thoughts and generating these same kind of feelings and thoughts about yourself, it can be a really difficult cycle to break. But I think one thing that can be really helpful to think about is that if the input into your brain is the same, if you're always doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, saying the same words about yourself, hanging out with the same people, having the same kind of habits, then your output is going to be exactly the same. If the same thing's going in all the time, the same thing is going to come out in the time, all the time. So if you want to make change, if you want to transform your lives, or if that feels like too much of a bold statement, just, you know, to start transforming how you feel about yourself, then you need to change the way that you are thinking, feeling, and acting. You need to get off autopilot, because that's what, you know, that's what we are. That's what habits are. It's just autopilot. You get used to thinking the same thing about yourself, who you are, what you deserve, and you need to respond differently. And one of the ways that you can do that is by taking an action to think, okay, no, I'm not happy with this story anymore. I'm not happy with saying that this is what I deserve, this is what I'm worthy of. I want to understand who I am now and what is going to make me feel that purpose, that sense of satisfaction, what is going to make me feel fulfilled, because I know that that's going to be a path to creating a better sense of identity and a better sense of self-worth. Like I say, it starts with that awareness of who you are and valuing, sorry about the double word then, who we are and what we want to be. So having that awareness of who we are or what we want to be and valuing that. So if you're interested in this topic and you want to explore it further, weirdly, I didn't time it this way, but I've been doing a free email challenge in my coaching business this week. We started on Monday, where people that signed up, I've sent short video trainings. So it's like a 5-day short video trainings with downloadable workbooks for people to start exploring some of this stuff. So we talked about setting intentions. I took them through an exercise to uncover their core values. We looked at like unique qualities and skills that we either have or we want to have. We also looked at the kind of blockers that and beliefs that are stopping you from, you know, becoming who you want to be or taking that next step. And that's as far as we've got, because we're on day 4. But if any of you are interested in some of the things that I've discussed today and you want to take it a step further, I've set up a special link for LD UK people that if they want to join, I can share the link in the chat. If you want to sign up, like say it's free, then you can join and I can send you perhaps all the videos tomorrow and you can catch up in your own time. I think they're only going to be live for about a week or so, but they're only they're no more than kind of 10 minutes long. And then, like I say, it's got some accompanying workbooks and exercises for you to download and keep and do. So if any of you are interested, like I say, I'll share the link, but more than happy to chat more on this and have a chat with Julia or answer any questions on anything that I've shared today. So I'm just going to stop sharing my slides.
And I'm coming back. I think I'm back now, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. That's really interesting, Rosie, and obviously encompasses everything that we've spoken about before this session. I actually jotted down a couple of words as you were speaking, because I think it's quite valuable to other people to hear people that they see about in the Lyme world who, I mean, I know that I'm around a lot in the Lyme world and quite well known, and people seem to think that I haven't got any limitations at all because of the work I do. So I picked out a couple of words which absolutely underpinned what happened to me. So I picked out self-worth and I picked out identity, and also the word proud. So from my experience, and I am a Lymey, although I didn't know I was at the beginning, I actually spent probably 6 years basically sitting on the sofa. Couldn't do anything, couldn't do much at all, couldn't chat like this, couldn't read or write properly, even though before I became ill I was a very high achieving health professional, and was sort of at master's level, and I found myself not being able to write my name because my illness was very neurologically based and still is. So I completely lost self-worth. I completely lost who I was, and I certainly wasn't very proud of myself. I literally lost everything about me, who I was. And I couldn't have told you one positive thing about me. And I'd had quite a string of achievements, getting up to the higher levels of my profession quite quickly. I couldn't even visualize those anymore. I was just this wreck of a person, physically and mentally. Now I'm going back about, so I became ill in 1999, 2000. So the internet wasn't quite as strong as it is now, and there were no online courses like you do, Rosie, and other people do. And I just couldn't find a way out. I couldn't find a way out at all. And I had two key events in my life that made me turn things around. And I don't think it's harmful to share those. I don't mind sharing what happened, because there was nobody to help. There wasn't a book, there wasn't a course, there wasn't much. But the two things that triggered me off to completely changing my life, and I wasn't physically one jot better, was, and this is going to sound a bit crazy, but I'd been married a long time, nearly 30 years at the time. And I asked my husband to leave because I found out that he was seeing somebody behind, back, and I was housebound and all the rest of it. And at the time, I couldn't get my own food. I couldn't go shopping. I couldn't do anything much for myself. And yet I took that decision to take control back of my life and say, my life, even if it's so limited, will be up to me from now on. And that was a big turning point for me. And my self-esteem started to come up. And then shortly after that, my eldest daughter told me she was pregnant, and she wasn't married at the time, and it was a bit of a shock. But the two things together, when my first grandchild was born, I took another leap forward, not physically in any way, but mentally, because I decided I'd already taken control, that I was in charge of my life. I was going to steer it, even if I was going to stay ill for the rest of my life. And then when this tiny grandchild came along, which was a total surprise, I made my mind up that whatever my disabilities, I was not going to be a rubbish granny. And I wasn't going to sit in the corner completely not able to do anything. I was somehow going to be the best granny in the world. Now, whether that was because I was starting to build self-esteem, I don't know. But the two things that happened fairly close together, I would say within probably 5 months, were my turning point. So I actually believe that people can, whatever their limitations, I don't think there's many people watching this. If there is, I completely relate to you, who have been much lower than I was, self-esteem wise, mentally wise. Literally, I tried to take my own life before I turned it around. Had nothing, absolutely nothing. And I completely relate to everything you say, Rosie. Although I didn't have a Rosie to take me through these steps, somehow I did find them. And I hope that other people who perhaps are not keen to do an online course or not keen to do various things realise that it is possible to sort of take control back. And in this world of social media that we're in now, I think a lot of people are heavily influenced by Facebook's, Instagram, not so much Twitter, but certainly Instagram and Twitter, where they see people living these perfect lives, but they're not perfect. It's just a snapshot of their life at that minute, and that helps bring your self-esteem down, doesn't it? So I think that's another factor when you try and break out of this pattern. Try not to focus on everybody else has got the perfect life. They totally haven't.
No.
We've all got skills in us that I think sometimes adversity brings them out. And
yeah, I
now I use my skills that were cut short. So that's obviously from the nursing profession, from academia. I can now use those skills to help people with chronic disease, with Lyme disease. So the self-esteem is back. It was a road, but I definitely learned a lot. And do you know what? Before it happened to me, I thought I knew it. I thought I knew it all. I thought, being the health professional that I was, nobody could really teach me much about health and self-esteem. And if it's taken away from you totally, and then you rebuild it, it's a massive life thing. Don't know how to put it.
Life affirming experience, isn't it? Yeah, 100%, Gilly, you're totally right. I think, like I say, when you have gotten to that stage, really, I mean, what you were explaining there is you made a decision, like you decided, and that's how it starts. It's making that decision. And a bit what you were saying there, like I thought I knew it all, I knew myself, I knew about health, a bit like me. I've always been really kind of driven. I've always, had a really like good sense of self. And then when I went through fertility, it took over everything. It was like, I literally, it was every waking breath and second, everything I put into my body. A lot of what fertility follows, Lyme tend to follow as well. It's a lot about natural living and no chemicals and all of that jazz. And I'd put my life on hold. I'd put my career on hold. I wouldn't even like book a holiday or a spa weekend in case I might be pregnant. It's just how it takes over your life is crazy. And when I made the decision that actually no, I wasn't going to put my life on hold anymore, some of the stuff I went through, you talked about comparison on social media. Obviously I was at that age where every time you were opening Facebook there was another baby scan photo, or World Book Day as it's been today. That would have killed me 5 or so years ago. But like I say, I think there's a time where you make a decision, you're like, okay, this is how it's been making me feel, but actually this is the decision I'm going to make now. I'm probably someone different now, but I need to work out who I am and what it is I want to do. And like you say, you got to that point where you were like, no, I'm not going to feel like this anymore. I am worth more than this, and I want more than this for myself. And that's a very important decision to make.
I think it's about, even if you physically can't take back control, it's about mentally taking back control and saying, this is my life and I will live it by my parameters, whatever my problems. So I hope people do get that message that there isn't any magic, that you could go to this book or that book, this textbook. All what you've said resonates with me completely, and it is about taking that decision. You're absolutely right. So there's quite a few things in the chat box. So the first thing we had in the chat box is, when our health is controlled by Lyme disease or any other illness, is it not typical that our core values are about compassion, life, caring for others when we feel okay?
Yeah, that your values are often going to be linked to where you are in your life at that particular moment in time. But it's not, I would say, one way to kind of focus it is, yes, those are the values that you probably care about most, but they're probably the values that you care most about from other people. It's also about the kind of values that you like to express within yourself, and that is often reflected because obviously we're expressing compassion, patience, or whatever, because that's what we want other people to demonstrate to us. So yeah, it does make sense that the kind of values that are important to you are going to be linked to those that you are feeling like you want from other people or that expressed in your life. So if those are things that make you empowered or like purposeful or fulfilled to embody, so if you were going to express more compassion, love, any of the other things that you listed there, and that made you feel purposeful, that's fine. But if it's coming from a place of, well, this is what everyone else should be doing, so I'm going to do it as a demonstration on how everybody else should be, because that's what I expect back, then they're probably not necessarily your core values. But yeah, it's so likely to be interlinked. And as I mentioned during the presentation, sometimes your values will change. Your values might change when you do become a mother or a father, when you different things happen in your life. If your financial situation changes, then your values might change too. But yes, in short, they're often linked to what you are experiencing at that time. It's just about making sure that they're values that resonate with you and make you feel powerful and happy and fulfilled to embody, not just ones that you feel like you want to experience from others. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make total sense. So there's some more comments in the chat box. So one says, I completely relate to your personal story and to the positive side of the adversity we face. I too have been to rock bottom, but I'm now using my past and new skills in a positive way while still continuing my own journey. Thank you for sharing. Somebody else says, thank you. How would you navigate new relationships when you don't know how your health is going to be from one day to the next?
Yeah, it's such a tough thing, especially kind of new relationships. I think if and when you're grounded in your self-worth and you value yourself, or your limits, and you understand what it is that you need, then you're more willing and able to kind of healthily express those, and you will feel worthy of the kind of time, love, and attention that you need. It's often said, that the people and the things that you attract in life is a reflection of what you feel you deserve. So the decisions that you make in love and your relationships, what you are reflecting to others is what you expect to receive back from them, if you see what I mean. So hopefully you would be attracting somebody that can understand, meet you where you're at, and is the kind of supportive partner that you would want. But as I say, I know it's difficult when you are in a new relationship. You can't necessarily do all the things that someone can do, and I guess it's just about being grounded in yourself, being able to feel as if you can be honest and not putting your worth on whether or not you're able to give them what you see that everyone else can give. Like, you still have a hell of a lot to give as a person, regardless of what you're physically kind of able to do or how much you're able to do. So yeah, my advice really would just be to ground into that honesty, to make it clear and understand yourself what it is that you need from relationships. You know, we talked about that human needs thing before. That might be an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, if you are strong in your sense of self-worth, what you need and what you expect from a relationship, I feel that's something that you can express at the earliest relevant opportunity. And if the person loves and respects you and sees your worth, they will be patient, supportive.
I'd just like to let everybody know that I have happily remarried.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably a good person to talk about this, really, Julia, because obviously you met your hubby after you were ill.
So to the person who asked that question, so I met my second husband, who I knew previously because all our families were in the RAF together, and families tend to move around together. And my now husband lived across the road with a different family, but we met up again in Lincolnshire. I was still housebound at the time, and became sort of really great friends. But I made it clear that, you know, I did have this problem, and I didn't know that if I might have to go back at one point to sit in an armchair all day or being bedbound. I didn't know if that could possibly happen again. Hopefully it won't. And that if that wasn't acceptable, then the relationship wasn't acceptable. So I'm a lot better now than I was when we first got married. So we got married in 2014. And we were friends for probably about 4 years before that. So that's quite a long time span now. But I did make it clear that if that wasn't acceptable, then forget it. Do you know what I mean? So it can be done. You know, there are happy endings. And I'm not trying to be cliched or anything, but I think a lot of what I experienced I don't think I was a bad person, and I think I had very good values, but it certainly woke me up, and I stopped saying, why me? Instead of saying, why me? I started saying, well, why not me? And if I hadn't have been ill, I wouldn't have been in the happy relationship that I'm in now. So, you know, that would never have happened. So we've sort of come to our time, but we've got some nice comments in the chat box. So somebody also obviously resonates with me, totally resonate with all of this, very similar story to Julia, rediscovering myself and moving forward massively, which is amazing to hear. Somebody else, so much resonates, and thank you for the vulnerable sharing. I'm recognizing and proud of myself for some of these steps I've taken along my journey too, and steps I try to practice and foster really aligned to this type of talk, and it is part of my intention in 2023, despite health being in a difficult time still. Thank you for making this available today. I did think when we talked about it, Rosie, that it would resonate with people, so I'm glad it has.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that it's been something that people have found, and I think you sharing your side of things, Julia, has really helped give that tangibility to what we're talking about. And I guess the last message I would leave from me is to just don't give your illness a meaning about yourself that isn't true. Don't make it feel like you've done something wrong, that this is some kind of karma, that this is something you deserve, because it's not. And I've thought those things, and I know how difficult it is, and I know there's talk in the chat about acceptance, and you know how hard it can be to mourn your own life, and I totally get it. But the power comes in accepting and make a decision moving forward, because there are certain things that you just can't change, but the one thing that you can control are your thoughts and feelings and where you go from here.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think so this last message, such a powerful presentation, ladies, very emotional, relatable. When you are really struggling to accept your new life with Lyme and feel frustrated and stuck with progress, what can you recommend to stop mourning your old life so much? Acceptance can be very hard. Well, I will say that it's important to mourn your own life. my previous background was in palliative care, which is end of life care with children. So there's nothing more emotive a job than that. And any sort of process where your life completely goes out of control, changes, you have to go through that grief process. And so that becomes disbelief, anger, all the mourning things that people do if they've lost someone. You do it for yourself when you become very ill, and try and move. If anybody's try and move through those steps, because at the end you do get some acceptance of who you are now. So I just want to thank everybody for joining in tonight. And really thank you, Rosie, because I just knew that this session was very much needed for some people. And let's hope that people take away some positivity and they can break out of this cycle. It is a cycle of there's no hope. There's just no hope. And, you know, for me and you, Rosie, we learned to live a very productive life, even with the things that we've, you know, tackled. And, you know, from my point of view, I'm never going to be 100% well, but I'm living a good life. So please, everybody, you know, please take that on board, because I see every day people's struggles. And, you know, hopefully we've talked about everything tonight, Rosie and I, and hope you can take away from us that it is possible. So I'm going to close the session now. Thank you for everybody who's commented, because there's loads of comments now, and we're already over time. There's absolutely loads. So I'll save the chat box and send them to Rosie so she can see them. And as soon as this recording is uploaded, it will be sent out to everybody who's registered. And it'll also be, there will be a website piece, the Lyme Disease UK website. There'll be a piece with Rose's slides in a PDF form with the recording. And it will also be on our Lyme Disease UK YouTube channel. So thanks everybody for coming. Hope you all got something out of it. And I'll close the session for everybody. But thanks so much, Rosie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be back, even if briefly, to the Lyme world. So.
Yeah, we miss you. We miss you. So when I end the thing, it's going to completely close, but I will be in touch.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you.
I haven't just pissed you off.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. Good night.